welcome, guys, to Week 10 college football. This is On the Field podcast with Overtime. I'm here with my co-host Steven. Steven, we had a good game, a good couple of games last weekend. How are you feeling today?
Alex, great to be back. Hope you're doing well. I'm feeling great. Spooky season come to a quick end. Halloween yesterday, but no more scary matchups in sight. I'm looking forward to a good weekend ahead of college football. Excited to talk about the games we have coming up. A lot of big matchups, especially the big one, Alabama and LSU. Can't wait to break that one down with you. But yeah, doing well. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Actually, I see a sneaky game in there, but we'll touch on that uh, once we get deeper in. I think we had a couple of good games this past weekend. We had Oklahoma going down. That was terrible for my parlay. I can't say that I didn't see this coming. I knew since Kansas had a bad game against Texas, they got blown out. I was like, all right, Kansas didn't show up for that game. They could show up for this game, and they did. They won that game 38-33. Dylan Gabriel, only 14 out of 19 passes completed, 171 yards, one interception. Jason Bean, not too much better, but he got the win, 15 out of 32, 218 yards and two interceptions actually, and they still found a way to win. So, what did you think about that, Steven? I know it ruined a lot of people's parlays.
Yeah, this one was a bit of a trappy game for the Sooners. I on the pod last week backed the Jayhawks plus 10, but didn't see a victory at all for them, and they come out with a stunner here, putting a damper on Oklahoma's undefeated season. They're now 7-1. This was a big game for Kansas. They're at home, biggest game of the year, and they really needed a win to stay relevant in the rankings. Like you said, just not an overall impressive showing from Jason Bean, but they got the job done, scoring late to take the lead with under a minute to go. And they got an interesting matchup coming up this week. We'll get into that later. I don't know if they'll be able to repeat the success there, but this one was a heartbreaker for anyone with Oklahoma money line in a parlay. Should have been able to get the job done, but now let's see how Oklahoma bounces back to finish off the season.
Yeah, excited to see how they bounce back. We also had Georgia in Florida playing Graham Mertz. So this one was a difficult game. Brock Bowers out, a lot of people didn't know if Georgia had enough in the tank to take down Florida, but they actually dominated them. Florida came out, had a pretty fast start, scored seven points straight down the field, but other than that, after that, they really struggled to move the ball. Georgia's defense is nasty. They look like the championship team that we saw last year. I mean, they're back. They look really good. What were your takeaways from this game?
This one coming in, the highlight for Georgia was Brock Bowers being out, like we mentioned, and I had my chips on Florida to cover the 14 or 14.5 point spread, and Georgia proved a lot of people wrong this week. They get a massive win, easily covering 14 points, the over of 50, crushing that as well. People like to talk all about the Georgia defense, which is great, but they're showing that they can score the ball too. They got a couple games to finish out down the stretch to solidify their place in the college football playoff. I think this team will easily go undefeated in the regular season, but looks like they might have Alabama in the SEC championship game. So a lot could happen. A lot could shake up the Bulldogs' season down the stretch, but I think it's going to come down to the championship game. And let's be clear here. I think even with one loss, we could see Georgia still get into the college football playoff. They're really looking solid, and they're turning it on late, which is important. They're building up the resume, and this one was a great trip to the swamp for the Georgia Bulldogs.
Yeah, a couple of tough games coming up here for Georgia. They have Missouri, but thankfully they're playing that game at home. Then they have Ole Miss and Tennessee. So it's going to be interesting to see if Georgia can make it through those games and still have that O on their record. I don't know, man. I don't know. Missouri, Luther Burden, those guys are good. I think Georgia only won by 2 last year, and this Missouri team looks a lot better. I think this is one of the better Missouri teams that we've seen. That's going to be an interesting game. Looking forward to that one. We also had Oregon at Utah, and that one. So the spread in that was 6.5. Oregon easily covered, dominated on both sides of the ball. Bo Nix looked really good. Completed 24 out of 31 passes, 248 yards, 2 tutties, and Utah. The Utah offense didn't show up, or maybe the Ducks. I'll say this: the Ducks defense was too good. We already knew coming into this game that Utah's offense wasn't great. It looked good against USC, but that's only because USC has terrible defense. But Bryson Barnes, 2 interceptions. Hard to win a game when you throw that many picks. But yeah, Oregon looked very impressive. They only have 1 loss against Washington, and they could get a rematch. So we could possibly see Oregon get into the college football playoffs.
Yeah, this was a great showing from Oregon. A very low spread at 6.5. That was one of my takes in my parlay. And that just mostly came not only from Oregon's strength all around, but a Utah team that I think was a tad bit overrated last week. Their offense isn't spectacular by any means. They put up a lot against USC, but like you said, Alex, that USC defense is like Swiss cheese. And they didn't have a great showing on offense this past weekend. And Oregon just taking an easy dub. We've spoken about the Oregon-Washington matchup, but that one could have easily gone the Ducks' favor. They had 150 more yards than them, lost late. They were on the road. So everything points to the Ducks getting a sweet bit of revenge at the end of the season if they do face Washington for a rematch. I like this Oregon team a lot. They're one of my sleeper teams to maybe even win the whole thing. But we'll see how they'd fare if they can get to the college football playoff. Bo Nix has been great, keeping his name in the Heisman race. And just not a good showing from Utah. Their defense has been great for most of the season, but it's hard to stop the Ducks when they're rolling.
Yeah, I like this Oregon team a lot too. I think we'll see them sneak into the college football playoff, especially if or when they beat Washington in the rematch. We also had Washington playing this weekend against Stanford. I said it on the pod here last week. This Washington team, something's fishy to me. They've been playing pretty bad the last couple of weeks. Only beat Stanford 42-33. And Stanford has one of the worst offenses in the country. This Washington defense, I don't know what's up with Washington, but ever since they beat Oregon, they just look bad. They looked bad 2 weeks ago against Arizona State, only winning 15-7, and now they're gonna go play USC. I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with Washington, but they need to wake up, or they could have a loss here at USC this weekend.
Yeah, pretty tough couple past weeks for Washington after the big dub against Oregon. Giving up 33 to Stanford is not ideal. This is a team that put up 7 on UCLA the week prior and only scored 10 against USC back in September. I've been praising the Huskies the past couple of weeks here. I do think that they've performed overall well. They are 8-0, but something's got to give. They have a lot of tough opponents down the stretch. I'm a lot less confident that they finish the regular season undefeated now. It's going to come down to whether or not their defense can give a little bit of help to the offense. They're going to be scoring points Michael Penix Jr. also, like Bo Nix, trying to keep his name in the Heisman race. And we got a nice offensive matchup, prime time on ABC between Washington and USC. So we'll see how that one shakes out. We'll get our takes a bit later. But yeah, Washington definitely has not been helping their resume the last couple of weeks, despite staying undefeated. Oregon definitely seems like the better side as of right now.
Yeah, and we also had USC playing California this weekend. USC escaping. They won by 1 point. Final score 50-49. Caleb Williams had 2 touchdowns. Fernando Mendoza, the quarterback for Cal, had 2 touchdowns and 1 interception. Cal overall had 4 turnovers, as opposed to only 1 for USC, and USC still only won by 1 point. They had to come back in that game. It looked like Cal was going to seal it. Came back late, got the job done. What's interesting to me is, or maybe I'll talk about this later when we're covering the USC versus Washington game, but yeah, that USC defense is just terrible. I don't know what they're doing down there. They need to fire Alex Grinch. They need to get a new defensive coordinator. USC doesn't look too good right now.
Yeah, that defense not great. Cal plus the 11 points was great value, almost coming out with the outright dub, but a late comeback from the Trojans. They squeaked by 1 point in a 50-49 game. And USC, the offense can only take them so far. If your defense can't stop anybody, Caleb Williams has to be near perfect throwing the football. And we've seen in a couple weeks past, if he's turning the ball over, it's almost like the nail in the tombstone for the Trojans. Yeah, like you said, they might need to fire that defensive coordinator if they want to really look like a top-end program next season. They have a couple tough matchups down the stretch, still Washington and still Oregon, and then they have a interesting South Florida matchup taking on UCLA at home in the final game of the season. So we'll see. Can they escape with less than 5 losses? We might not know. Well, we definitely won't know until it happens, but I think they're going to have a rough stretch down the end of the season here. You can't give up 49 points to Cal.
Yeah, it's not looking good. Washington also gave up 32 points, but that game wasn't as close. So we'll see what happens with USC. We also had Tennessee at Kentucky. Both of us felt like Kentucky was going to pick up a much-needed win here. They were on a 2-losing streak. Now they're on a 3-loss streak. They lost at home. They actually did a lot. Devin Leary did a lot better than I thought he would. He hasn't looked great passing the ball. He looked like a completely different quarterback in this game. 28 out of he completed 28 out of 39 passes for 372 yards and 2 touchdowns. Joe Milton, I said it last week. He looks like the Joe Milton that we saw at Clemson last year in the Orange Bowl. He had a really good day, 18 for 21. Pretty impressive, 228 yards, 1 touchdown. Tennessee looked pretty good in this game. Solid defense, solid run game. Good win for Tennessee here.
Yeah, we were both back in Kentucky plus the points. I was really expecting Kentucky to give it their all here to stop the losing streak. Ray Davis, like I thought, would have a big game. 16 carries for only 42 yards, but did manage to find his way into the end zone for the Wildcats. But at the end of the day, Tennessee, from the get-go, got out to an easy or quick and easy 10-0 lead and just rode that wave to the end. Volunteers have been looking solid, and proven us wrong last week with a big road win. So
Yeah, and all of a sudden that Georgia game looks a lot more interesting.
Oh, definitely. That's the penultimate regular season matchup for them, traveling on the road in Tennessee. It's Georgia might have that might be their most difficult matchup before the end of the season.
And let's also add that they might not get there as an undefeated team. They could very well be a one-loss team going into that game. So the pressure is going to be very big on that game.
Absolutely.
Are there any other games that you wanted to cover from this past week? Any interesting ones?
Yeah, I think we got to touch on Air Force a bit. I mean, this has been an amazing season. They're 8-0. I think they can easily finish out the regular season undefeated. I'd be interesting to see how the playoff committee rates their resume. It hasn't been, stacked by any means in terms of tough opposition, but they week in and week out have been handily defeating teams, winning 30 against Colorado State. I think they're a team to look at this weekend in a matchup against Army, and I'd be interested to talk with you a little bit later about that matchup. 18.5 point spread for Air Force. But yeah, that was another great win for Air Force. Another game that I think we should talk about really quick: Ohio State at Wisconsin. Last week I was taking Wisconsin plus the points, 14.5, and also the under, which I had in my 4-leg parlay. Both of those hitting 24-10, but I feel like I kind of got the game script spot on, where Ohio State comes out to a quick little bit of a lead and then tries to hold it throughout. And I've said it before, but Kyle McCord just isn't the man for the job for the Buckeyes. I think he's going to hold them back down the stretch, especially in that matchup against Michigan at the end of the season. Been really liking the Ohio State unders lately. Alex, any takes from Ohio State against Wisconsin?
Yeah, I'm not surprised that they won. That defense looks great. I mean, you saw Kyle McCord. He had 2 interceptions uh, and a fumble. They had 3 turnovers in total. Still found a way to win. That defense is world class. Wisconsin only had 259 yards. Yeah, but like you said, Kyle McCord. I don't know. It's interesting because when they played Notre Dame, I was like, all right, Kyle McCord. I don't know. I don't know about Kyle McCord. He doesn't look too good. And then they played Penn State. He looked good in that game. Wasn't perfect, but he did enough to win. But yeah, like you said, at Michigan, that's going to be a tough game at the end of the season, and that could be the difference. Kyle McCord, how he plays in that game is going to be huge.
Kyle McCord definitely should be thanking whoever he's praying to or whatever he's believing on. He should be thanking every night that he has Marvin Harrison Jr. to throw to. That dude, if he had more than half competent quarterback, I'd say he'd be the heavy favorite to win the Heisman as a wide receiver. Just a generational talent for the Buckeyes. I really enjoy watching him play week in and week out. I think if Ohio State has any chance at making the college football playoff and winning it, Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to have to be big time for them with a lot of big plays, long receptions, breaking down the secondary when he gets the ball. And also Cade Stover. Cade Stover is a solid tight end, one of the best in the country. And he offers a little bit of relief to Marvin Harrison when they are throwing the ball. So, those are positives for Kyle McCord. If you're a Buckeyes fan, you definitely would like to see Kyle McCord utilize his weapons better when they're moving the ball up the field. But again, just a world-class defense. If the offense is clicking, this team can definitely beat anybody, but it just hasn't looked great for Kyle McCord lately. The Buckeyes are an interesting team to watch, definitely coming up down the stretch. Let's see if McCord can turn it up late and prove some people wrong. I
Yeah,
think
and it looks like they're also going to get Egbuka back this weekend against Rutgers. So it's going to be interesting to see him back in the lineup.
definitely true. Forgot about him for a second. In the Marvin Harrison show, but yeah, he's definitely a top talent to get back. That's huge for them. Alex, one other game I think we should mention really quick. North Carolina, the Tar Heels. They coming off of a terrible defeat against Virginia. They had Georgia Tech this week on the road.
Yeah, and it looked like they were actually gonna. It looked like they're gonna win the game, and then all of a sudden, fourth quarter, game turns around. Georgia Tech gets the comeback.
A very bad beat. Yeah, they were cruising to start the fourth quarter. I believe they were up 35-24 going into the fourth, and just the fourth quarter was all Georgia Tech. A heartbreaking loss for any Tar Heel fans. I wanted to, we both backed UNC in this game. We both thought they would bounce back after that tough loss, but they have looked shaky, and they proved again to be not as defensively sound, despite their offense clicking. The over definitely a lock in this one, but they just can't get those crucial stops when they need to. And unfortunately, Georgia Tech came back late, hit them with the backdoor cover and W. Drake May has been very solid. He had a decent showing, 17 of 25, 310 yards, 2 touchdowns. And they had solid game on the ground as well with Hampton. But if you can't get any stops when you need to, it's going to be, like we've spoken about with USC, Washington. You need that defense ultimately to support your offense at the end of the day. Really helps calm the nerves for the overall team if your defense is getting easy stops. But when you keep a team around, especially late, nerves can kick in, and anything can happen down the stretch. UNC, great start to the season, 6-0, and unfortunately now it seems like their season's all but done. Probably playing for a good bowl game.
Yeah, 2 straight losses for North Carolina. Hopefully they get back on track and finish out the season with some games, some wins there. We also had Duke playing Louisville. They got shut out 23-0. I don't think Riley Leonard's still at 100%. I think if he was completely healthy, we could have been seeing a different game. But unfortunately for them, Louisville was just too much this past weekend.
Yeah, definitely a tough stretch for the Duke Blue Devils. You mentioned Riley Leonard. He did not look healthy, and definitely tell there's something wrong. They might need to let him sit out for a bit and recuperate. But they were looking great. They were looking great last week against Florida State as well, up until he took that hard hit. And Louisville with a shutout 23-0 victory. I thought the Duke defense was going to be able to keep this one a little bit closer. The offense, unfortunately, wasn't able to get anything going. Only 202 total yards, 9 first downs. And Louisville just dominated this game, stretch to stretch in terms of both offense, defense, and also just possession. They really stuck it to the Blue Devils.
Yeah, and now we have Duke this weekend at home against Wake Forest. I think this is a great spot for them to get back on the winning track. I think they've dropped 2 straight games, Florida State and now Louisville. Yeah, I like Duke this weekend at home playing against Wake Forest. The spread's at 12.5. Over unders at 45.5. Give me Duke to get back on the winning side of things. Take a nice win here at home.
Yeah, so Duke coming in, hosting Wake Forest, the spread at 12.5 on overtime here. I see that over under is a little bit maybe already moved down to 43.5. I do think Duke will get the win. I'm just a little bit uncertain on if they can cover. the 12.5 points, especially if Riley Leonard isn't 100%. What I am a little bit more confident on is the under, even at 43.5. I think that is a solid play and position to take. But yeah, I wouldn't be so confident in the Blue Devils covering 12.5. Wake Forest has looked pretty decent this season. I think they'll be able to score a couple touchdowns and keep this one close. It's ultimately going to come down to how many points are the Blue Devils putting up.
Yeah, I might stay away from this game, especially if Riley Leonard's not 100%. So we'll monitor that. If he's good to go, I like Duke to win. Money line, I won't mess around with the handicaps here. Yeah, but if Riley Leonard's back healthy, I like Duke to win this game.
Definitely, that's the an early Thursday matchup this week. Getting into some picks now, right?
Yeah. Let's move into the picks for this week. I think we covered. I think we covered all the games from last week, unless there's something that we missed.
Yeah, nothing else too notable in terms of big games, but one more game to mention: Miami, another overtime victory. They were taking on Virginia last week, a Virginia team that was just coming off of a huge dub against North Carolina. Miami kept this one very close, despite the spread being 18.5. Or sorry, Virginia kept it close. The Hurricanes got the dub in the end. Virginia's looked pretty solid the past couple of weeks. And now they have an interesting game against Georgia Tech coming up, where both of these teams recently having taken down the Tar Heels. I think that one's a sneaky one to watch as well coming up this week. That's the only other game that just wanted to highlight. I think we're good to go. Sorry, go ahead, Alex.
You're good. I had Miami on my parlay. They had me a little bit worried there, especially when they went into overtime. I was like, what are the odds that they win 2 straight games in overtime? I was like, it's not looking good, but they pulled it off, got the win, got the job done. And now Georgia Tech is playing this weekend against Virginia. The spread here is Virginia is actually favored by 2 points, and Georgia Tech beat both Miami and North Carolina. So I'm a little surprised to see Georgia Tech here as the underdog, but they are playing at Virginia, so that's going to be an interesting game to watch out. I'm leaning towards Georgia Tech, but it is on the road. So
sorry, Alex, but yeah, to your point, definitely a lot of value in Georgia Tech as the underdog. ESPN giving them around a 45.5% chance to win on the road, despite the Cavaliers being a 2-point favorite. Over-unders at 58. I think this one is a good call to lean on the over. I'm a little bit weary to make a call on the spread just because I could see this going either way in a bit of a shootout. I think Virginia is definitely going to want to bounce back after losing a close one to Miami. And Georgia Tech's definitely going to be riding the high off of taking down the Tar Heels, putting up 46 points. So I think leaning on the over 58 would be a solid position for me. Both of these teams, especially Georgia Tech, 460 total yards averaging and then allowing 468. I think we're going to see a lot of offense in this one.
Yeah, it could very well hit the over. I'll stay away from the over on this one. I think there's a couple more games that I want to put on my parlay, so I'll stay away from that game for this week. We also have Ole Miss at Texas or Ole Miss versus Texas A&M. Ole Miss is playing at home. Jackson Dart, Judkins. It's hard to pick against Ole Miss. They've only lost to Alabama. They took down LSU in a shootout. Hard to see Ole Miss drop this game. I think they get a a pretty clean win. I think they cover. It's only a 3-point spread. I think they have enough in the tank to cover with that offense. I think they get the job done this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you there, Alex. This is a very underrated Ole Miss side, and I think the spread is a tad bit low at -3. I think that's very, very doable, uh, especially at home. You know, Texas A&M has played a lot of teams close, only losing by 6 to Alabama, and they've had solid offensive showings week to week. But I think this is a huge, huge game for Ole Miss, and one that they are going to be putting their all in to set them up nicely down the stretch, give themselves a solid resume coming into the Georgia game, and then also hopefully a solid resume looking at the college football playoff. Even with one loss, if they get a couple big wins down the stretch, they're definitely not out of the conversation. So I'm with you there. I like Ole Miss -3. I think that is a solid position to take. And over under 54, it's a tough one for me to call. I think Ole Miss, the defense is going to step up as well. But Texas A&M putting up 30 last week, only scored 13 against the Volunteers, but scored 20 on Alabama. 54, it might be around. It might be very close to around there, I'd say. So I won't make an official call. My gut would lean over, but I think the safe call for this game is Ole Miss by 3 or more. So give me that -3 spread.
Yeah, I'll like to take the Ole Miss on the spread, but there's not much difference in the odds if you just take the money line. So I'll play it safe and take Ole Miss money line here. Not too much more. You're not gonna get much more juice if you take the spread. But yeah, I like Ole Miss here. They cracked into the top 10 on the first college football playoff rankings. That's gonna be a good game here. We also have Clemson playing Notre Dame here. Clemson coming off disappointing loss against NC State. It looks like they were going to get a comeback there in the fourth quarter, but they just ran out of time and dropped 2 straight games in a row. Notre Dame's defense looks solid. Quarterback is playing really good. It's always hard to bet against Dabo Swinney, but that defense that Notre Dame has very similar or even better than NC State, and you saw what happened there last week with Clemson. So I'll take Notre Dame on the money line.
Yeah, I have a couple apologies to make, not only to the Irish, but also you as well, Alex. I made a good case, or I thought it was a good case for Pitt last week with the 20.5 points. Historically, in South Bend, they've been playing very close, keeping games very close against the Irish. And Notre Dame stepped up big time against Pitt, winning 58-7, dominating throughout. Only gave up a touchdown late in garbage time. Sam Hartman had a couple picks early, which, I mean, he had 5 total. Or maybe not 5 total in the game, but he had a couple picks early in this game. I thought that boded pretty well for Pitt, but Notre Dame got on track. Their special teams, week in and week out, has been phenomenal. And like you mentioned, just one of the best defenses in the country. I really like the Irish this weekend against Clemson. I think -3 is way off. I could see Notre Dame winning this one by 10 plus easily. I think the spread at -3 is a very safe call. That one's more than likely going in my parlay later. This is a matchup that historically, especially recently, Clemson has been dominating Notre Dame. Notre Dame got that huge upset victory back in 2020 against Clemson when Trevor Lawrence was out. They had their backup in, and a lot of people put an asterisk on that one, saying that if Trevor Lawrence was playing that game, then Clemson would have easily won. But this is a team that Notre Dame always shows up to play against. They want this one now more than ever, especially with 2 losses on the season. I could see them giving their absolute all. They're on the road. They had two weeks at home and a bye past couple of weeks to sort of get back on track. And I think this team just keeps on rolling. I like Notre Dame -3. And as for the over/under, coming in at 45, the same case. I'll make the same case for Clemson. I think they're going to be wanting to make a statement here. Their record at 4-4 doesn't quite show how talented their roster is. I think they're going to come at this game very aggressive and try to stay in it. So I could see them putting up a couple touchdowns. My gut would lean over 45, especially after Notre Dame put up 58 in their own right last week. So I'd call Notre Dame -3 and the over 45 for this one.
Yeah, I'm excited to see that game. We also have Texas at home versus Kansas State. So number seven Texas versus number 25 Kansas State. Glenn Ewers is still out. We have backup Malik Murphy, and he threw one interception and he had a fumble last week. He looked okay. Not a great start, but he settled in, got some passes done. He had a lot of help from his running backs. I mean, that Texas team is just stacked on offense and defense. This is going to be an interesting game, but I don't know. I don't know about Malik Murphy. I don't trust him enough, and I haven't seen enough from him yet to take him over Kansas State. So I'll stay away from this game. I think they do win, but it's going to be a close game.
Yeah, the spread at only -4 for Texas. Kansas State has looked insanely hot as of late. 41-0 last week against Houston, and the week prior 41-3 against TCU. A little bit of concerns for Texas at the quarterback position, like you mentioned, with Quinn Ewers. Is he confirmed out for this game, Alex, or is he doubtful?
I think he's confirmed out.
Yeah, so that would give me some hesitancy. I do like Texas. I would like them a lot more to take the dub. If Ewers was playing, I think there might be value in Kansas State as an underdog here. They've looked really hot as of late. I'm going to stay away from the spread here, but I'm going to call an over 49. Despite Ewers being out, I think Murphy more than serviceable to get the job done. He had a decent showing last weekend. It wasn't bad by any means. I mean, they absolutely stomped on BYU. Yeah,
I like the over too.
Yeah, my official call for this one will be the over, and I'll stay away from the spread. I can see Kansas State actually winning this one, which is a little bit concerning, but the other side of the coin is Texas gets the job done with a win. And if they do win, I think it would be more than 4 points. So I'm a little uncertain on calling that spread.
Yeah, some good things for Texas here is that they're going to be hyped up seeing that Oklahoma lost. They still have a chance to get in the playoffs, and they're playing at home. Yeah, but with that backup quarterback, I don't know. It's tough. I'd rather stay away from this game. Don't want a backup quarterback to potentially mess up my parlay, hit every other leg, and then have Texas to lose. I'm going to stay away from this one. We also have Utah at home against Arizona State. The spread's at 11 points. Over unders at 41.5. Or Utah got stomped out by Oregon last week, but now they're back. I think there's a good spot for them to bounce back. At home, Arizona State had an upset last week against Washington State, but Washington State they haven't looked as good. I think they dropped a couple straight games. I think it's 4 straight games now that they've dropped since after starting 4-0. I like Utah here. Utah's defense is just too good. And if they get some help from Bryson Barnes here, they should win this game pretty easy. Maybe they cover, but I'll take Utah on the money line.
Yeah, I definitely think Utah money line is the safer play. I'm not confident at all that they can cover 11 points. I do really love the under in this matchup. Both offenses don't look great. Utah especially. It's been their defense for most of the season that's been carrying them. And the line's at 41.5. As a tough game for Arizona State. We got some crappy weather coming up. 44 degrees and raining projected. There's a team that thrives on having good weather. They like playing in the heat. I think they're going to be a bit demoralized by the weather, and also Utah. I just don't trust their offense enough. So give me the under 41.5. Pretty confident on that one.
There you go. We also have Georgia versus Missouri. That is an interesting game for me. Missouri actually getting completely disrespected in this. The spread's at 16 points. Let's see. Yeah, spread's at 16 points. So over under is at 56. I think this is with Luther Burden and Brady Cook, I think the over could easily hit in this one. There's going to be lots of touchdowns, lots of action. Cody Schrader's a good running back, really explosive. I mean, even in that loss to LSU, I mean, that Missouri offense is scary. If it wasn't for a couple of interceptions, a couple of turnovers, they might have won that game. Missouri looks a lot better than they did last year, and they only lost by 2 points. I like Missouri here, but I don't know. Georgia's looking pretty good, and they're playing at home. This is a tough call right here, but it's going to be a good game.
Definitely going to be one of the better games this weekend. Number 2, Georgia. Number 12, Missouri. Missouri, like you said, Alex, I think this line's a bit disrespectful. They've been phenomenal this season. Only suffering a tough loss against LSU, who have a phenomenal offense. I'm with you there. The spread is a little bit iffy for me, just because Georgia didn't look like they were solid to start the season in terms of covering spreads. Brock Bowers going down had a lot of people thinking that would affect them, and then they pulled off a very impressive win on against Florida last week, winning by 23, handily covering that spread. We see the spread moving up a couple more points now for Georgia. If I had to say something in terms of a spread call, I would lean on Missouri. 16 points is a bit much. I think they can definitely keep this one close. This is their most important game of the season. But on the other side of the coin, Georgia, this is their time to really kick it up into gear, solidify their resume. I think the one play that I would call for this would be on the over-under. And I like both offenses to put up a lot of points. We only got to hit 55, or on overtime it's actually moved up to 56. ESPN has it at 54.5. I still think 56 is doable, so I'd take the over there.
Yeah, 2 great offenses. I think we're going to see Luther Burden explosive in this game, but they're going to have to find another wide receiver because Georgia knows that they lit up their secondary last year. So I'm expecting them to, expect Luther Burden to come in there and seek and destroy, but that's going to be a good game. We also have Oklahoma State at home versus Oklahoma. Oklahoma coming off that disappointing loss against Kansas. The spread's only at 6.5. Over under set at 62. This is going to be the last time that Oklahoma State and Oklahoma play in the Big 12. Oklahoma State wants it. It's a rivalry game. I don't know. Oklahoma lost last week. They could lose again. Their defense was looking really solid against Texas. They stopped them on 4th down in a pivotal moment. When they played against UCF, they also stopped them to set a turnover on downs. But I don't know what happened to their defense last week. And even in the UCF game, they let UCF score a lot of points. This is a tough game to call. If I had to lean one way, I would take Oklahoma State here, plus the points.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Alex. Don't mean to just agree blindly, but I think there's a lot of value in taking the home team with a lot to prove in a bitter rivalry game. I think this one could be a shootout and come down to who has the ball last. And with a spread like 6.5, I think there's a lot of value in taking Oklahoma State plus the points. They've been steamrolling the last 4 weeks. Going back to early in October, they got a big win against Kansas State, who have looked good recently. A win over Kansas, who just beat Oklahoma. Put up 48 against West Virginia, and then a dominating 45-13 win against Cincinnati. They're going to absolutely show up for this one at home. It's going to be an insane atmosphere. I do think Oklahoma as well has a lot to prove, so they're going to show up for this one. My gut would lean Oklahoma State plus the points, good value, but I really love the over of 61. Like you said, the last time these two are playing a rivalry game in the Big 12, and I made the same case earlier in the season during the Red River rivalry, Oklahoma and Texas. Both offenses showed out for that one. I think we're going to see a similar type of matchup here. 3:30 kickoff. They're going to be ready to go and prepped. Give me the over 61 here.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. We also have, let's see, what else we have here. We have, are there any other games that you like? There's one that I want to cover, but let's see what you have.
I know one game that I don't like, and I will definitely be keeping this game far away from any sort of parlay, is Penn State, Maryland. So the past 3 weeks, I've been putting in 4-pick parlays, and week 1 and last week had one leg miss, and conveniently, both of the misses have come down to Penn State. So I'm staying far away from Penn State. They're taking on Maryland. The line is only 8.5, and the over/under set at 51. I think Penn State definitely gets a win here, but Maryland has shown flashes of brilliance in offense. I still think back a couple weeks ago, the first drive against Ohio State. Very quickly, they moved up the field and had a nice one-handed grab for a touchdown. And that game started off a bit shaky, but then Ohio State, the defense, got their act together and held Maryland to 17. I'm keeping this game far away from my parlay, but I'd say the over 51 is a solid position to take if you do want to take anything. Alex, do you have any calls for the Nittany Lions here?
Yeah, I agree. Ever since I saw this come out, I think the line moved. It was at 10. Now it's at 8. Maryland at home. Penn State didn't look great last week. I think there's still a little hungover after that Ohio State loss. Maryland's quarterback looking solid. He looked solid against Ohio State. They were able to hang with Ohio State for a little bit until Ohio State's defense took over. But yeah, I don't love Penn State here. I actually see a lot of value in that. Taking Maryland plus the points. They're playing at home. Got a good quarterback. Yep. Gonna be a good game.
Alex, if I have to guess, the games you want to look at still, more than likely Alabama and LSU. But do you have anything to say first for Florida State taking on Pitt?
Oh, that's automatic already. You know me. Give me Florida State money line. I don't know. I won't get into the spread. I think they do cover the spread, but give me Florida State to win it all.
This is definitely an interesting one. Florida State's been fantastic this whole season. I think they're a shoo-in for the college football playoff, but they just have to take care of business down the stretch. You got Pitt this week, Miami, then North Alabama, in the final game against Florida, which could have been a very solid matchup to look forward to had Florida somehow scraped out a dub against Georgia, or at least kept it closer than it was. But I think Florida's got a nice path to win the ACC. And I don't see anything going awry this week. I think it's an easy W. And Pitt didn't back me up last week against the Irish. The spread's 21.5. I really am hesitant to call Florida State covering that amount despite their offense looking fantastic. One play I have liked week in and week out is the Florida State over. It's been hitting for me very consistently. The line's only 51. If Pitt can bounce back and score more than 7, like they did last week, which I think they will do. The Notre Dame defense is phenomenal, and I think Florida State isn't at that same level on the defensive side of the ball. I think the over here is a very safe position to take, over 51. I'll stay away from the spread, although I do lean towards Florida State here. But my official take will be the over.
Yeah, that spread actually seems a little low. You would think with Florida State and Keon Coleman, Jordan Travis, Heisman contender, that it would be a little bit higher, especially after that disappointing loss and a blowout to Notre Dame. Seems a little sneaky for the spread to only be at 21, but yeah, I like Florida State to win. We also have, Kentucky versus Mississippi State. At Mississippi State, Kentucky has 3 straight losses. I think this is a good position for them to bounce back. The only thing is, it looks like Will Rogers is still questionable for Mississippi State. If he doesn't play, easy one for Kentucky here to bounce back. 3 straight losses. I mean, they want to get back on track here against Mississippi State. But if Will Rogers plays, it could be pretty bad. That guy's definitely a big difference maker as far as the offense. But I'm leaning towards Kentucky money line, and I actually get pretty good value here. Spreads at 3.5.
Yeah, this is an interesting one for me to call here. The spread 3.5 for Kentucky. They couldn't cover last week in a tough loss. I think Tennessee is definitely the harder opponent between the two. But now they have Mississippi State, and they're on the road. Kentucky is. And 3.5 point favorite. I'm a little wary to back Kentucky here. I think this could be a trap game of sorts. I think Mississippi State is very solid. They had a huge defensive showing against Arkansas 2 weeks prior. Didn't get the job done against Auburn last week, but that Auburn defense is criminally underrated. Very, very strong. They still managed to put up 13. But if I had to lean one way or the other, I'll ride with you. I'll say Kentucky bounces back. Give me Kentucky covering 3.5. And 46 seems a bit low. So I'll stay away from that over-under. That seems a bit tricky. I think if Kentucky is to win this game, I think the over will hit, but you can't count out that Mississippi State defense. So I could see that one going either way on the over-under. But give me Kentucky. We'll ride with them again this week. -3.5.
Yeah, I like Kentucky to bounce back. Just hoping and praying that Will Rogers isn't back, because if he is back, it's bad news for Kentucky. We also have USC versus Washington. All right, now this game is definitely 100% a trap game. Something's fishy here. Washington only favored by 3 points. That's something that stood out to me on ESPN. USC actually has 54% chance to win against Washington. I think Vegas has something up their sleeves here. You would think watching USC's defense over this past couple of games that the spread would at least be at 7 points or something a lot higher. And they're favored on ESPN, 54% chance to win. Yeah, I smell something fishy here.
Yeah, I'm with you there, Alex. This, I believe the line opened up at -4. When I was looking earlier this morning, it was at 3.5, and now at the time of recording, it's already whittled its way down to 3 even. Vegas definitely might have something up their sleeve that we don't know about. I would say that taking not Carolina, thinking about U of SC, taking Southern California plus the points is great value, especially ESPN giving them more than a 50% chance to win. But man, I don't know about this USC team. They have not performed great lately. They gave up 49 to Cal. We joked about this the other week where USC, LSU might come up against each other in a bowl game and the line might be something like 85. And we got an over-under of 76 for this one. Just to be a bit of a contrarian, give me Washington -3. This one's going to be a shootout, and I think down the stretch, Michael Penix Jr. Is going to make some big plays, keep his name in the Heisman race. I don't trust USC's defense, and although Washington hasn't looked great, this is the time of the season where you got to be bolstering your resume. This is a defense that they know they can attack and attack often. So give me Washington -3, although I will be keeping that far, far away from any parlays.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Vegas here. Vegas knows something. Only 3 points. We talked a couple of weeks. I would have taken Washington to cover a 14-point spread, something crazy like that. So the public loves Washington here. 94% of the bets are on Washington, and they have 60%. If we're looking at probability odds, they have 60% chance here on the sports book. That seems crazy. I mean, Oregon had 71 against Utah, and we know that one was pretty clear that they were going to win. And you have here another one that looks like Washington's going to win easy, and it's only at 60. So 94% of the bets for the public on Washington. I think they're going to run a lot of parlays this weekend, and yeah, I'll keep this one away from my parlay as well. But if I had a ride, I'm not fading Vegas. They know something. That line is too low.
Yeah, it's definitely probably the smart or sharp play there, Alex. Fade the public and ride with Vegas. I just think the narrative for Washington and Oregon would be much more entertaining if Washington comes in undefeated into that one and they're taking on a one-loss Ducks team. And
sometimes
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. Sometimes the most entertaining outcome is the most probabilistic.
Yeah, that's true. I just maybe I'm a tad biased here, which isn't great when you're thinking about betting, but I just can't trust USC. They haven't looked great for a couple weeks now, and I think if you have to come down to the nitty gritty, Washington, they got more to play for here, and it's going to be a tough one on the road, but definitely USC's defense. I don't think they're going to be up for the challenge over a whole 4 quarters to contain the Huskies. It's going to be close for sure, and I can easily see this being the trap game, USC winning, bouncing back, but if I had to ride with something, it'd be -3 for the Huskies.
Yeah. I like the over, actually. I like the over a lot. 76.5 with both these defenses being terrible. Well, Washington's defense isn't terrible. They had some stops on Bo Nix at home, but this time they're on the road, and they just looked terrible in the last 2 weeks. So that's going to be a good game. I'll watch it, but I'm not putting any money on that.
Yeah, I do like the over as
Well,
well. Just looking at it, but 76 is a frightening thing to wager on.
yeah, for sure. We also have the big game this week: Alabama versus LSU for the West, for the SEC West, and to see who's going to possibly play Georgia in Atlanta. This is an interesting game. At the beginning of the season, Alabama looked like they were going to drop at least a couple of games. Proved everybody wrong. Had some solid wins against Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Tennessee here in the past couple of weeks. Their defense is looking solid. Shut out Tennessee in that second half. They didn't score a single point. But on the flip side, you have Jaden Daniels, you have Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas Jr., Logan Diggs, one of the best offenses in the country. How does Alabama stop them? Is a big question, but I think the more important question is how does LSU stop Jalen Milroe, uh, Burton, Jace McClellan? Because LSU's defense, like USC, is just Swiss cheese. I mean, 55. They gave up 55 to Ole Miss. They gave up 39 to 30 something to Missouri, and it would have been more if they didn't have those turnovers. 45 to Florida State. I like Alabama here. Last year we were in a similar situation with Alabama having only one loss. LSU had two losses as well, and everybody thought Alabama was going to win coming into that game. Brian Kelly's first win against Nick Saban. He wants revenge. One of the greatest coaches ever. Yeah, hard for me to fade Nick Saban here. I think he gets a win at home, and he gets revenge. Give me Alabama money line.
Yeah, Alabama 3-point favorites. The line for the over-under, 60.5. I'd like that a lot more if it was maybe somewhere around the 56 to 58 range. But you can't discredit LSU's offense. They've been putting up massive, massive numbers. But at the same time, I do not trust Brian Kelly in big games whatsoever. I think they are heavily at a disadvantage when it comes to the coaching matchup. I think this one's going to go over, even at 60.5. I think Alabama's offense has definitely improved by a lot, especially when looking at the beginning of the season. They've been consistently putting up around more than 30 points. 34 last week against a tough Tennessee side. Only 24 and 26 the weeks prior, but then 40 on Mississippi State. And especially when LSU is going to be gunning and trying to put up a lot of points. I think Alabama's defense might not be the star of the show in this one, but more so that they're just able to outclass LSU in a strategic coaching matchup. I think LSU is going to push the pace, but at the end of the day, Nick Saban is going to be walking away with a W. Alabama is going to improve to 8-1. Give me Alabama -3. Could see them winning on a field goal. But still, that'd be a push. I think it's very safe to just take that -3 line. And something tells me this one's going to be an exciting one to watch. I like the over at 60.5 as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna be right there tailgating. Have some pizza, a couple beers. That's gonna be a good game. That offense, that LSU offense, how's Alabama gonna stop them? I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to see. But if somehow LSU wins, you have to put Jaden Daniels at the front of the Heisman to win it. I mean, that guy's just explosive. He can run the ball. He can throw the ball. Gets away from the defense. It's gonna be a great game.
Definitely a win would help Jaden Daniels' Heisman potential. However, I think at the end of the day, still a 2-loss team. A lot of his stats and bigger games have come up against lesser defenses. this isn't a knock to Jaden Daniels at all, but just in terms of the Heisman, I think there's been, especially when it comes to the quarterback position, there's been a couple more impressive quarterbacks, like a J.J. McCarthy, Bo Nix, Michael Penix Jr. Jaden Daniels definitely talented, but with the resume the LSU squad have, I think it would be hard to give him the edge there. However, if they do crush Alabama, that definitely helps bolster his case a lot, and anything can happen down the stretch.
Yeah, I like Jaden Daniels over all those quarterbacks they just mentioned. Sorry to disagree with you, Steven, but uh, I don't know. I don't know about JJ McCarthy. He's pretty good, but they just haven't played anybody. But we'll see. We'll see how the Heisman race turns out. But definitely some good quarterbacks in there. Bo Nix, Michael Penix. I've actually something interesting to note. Penix took a pretty big hit in that Oregon game. Maybe that's the reason that Washington looked so bad the past couple of weeks. He's maybe not 100% healthy. Was a pretty big hit, and they've been struggling the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, we also forgot to mention Florida State's man Jordan Travis. I mean, he's definitely up there as well. And if they can finish out undefeated, I think he deserves a shout. In that conversation in terms of the top quarterbacks. But I don't discredit Jaden Daniels' offensive talent in the slightest. I think he's one of the best talents there is. Just for me, the resume of the team almost holds him back a bit. That was more so my my argument there. But without a doubt, LSU and Alabama, prime time, CBS. That's the game to watch this weekend. Clear your schedules at night. That one's going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm excited to see that game. I think we've pretty much covered all the games for this week. Is there any other game that you want to touch on?
Did we mention Oregon taking on Cal? I mean, they got a big spread to cover at 24 points. Over under at 59. That'd be an interesting one to see if Oregon can cover another massive spread. I'm hesitant to make a call on that, but Alex, what's your takes for the Ducks?
Yeah, 24.5 points. Pretty big spread to cover, especially after coming out of a big win. Sometimes, when you have a big win like that, the team can look a little bit sloppy. The next week, we saw Ohio State. Only won by 14 this weekend after beating Penn State. Somewhat close game, but yeah, I like Oregon to win straight up. I don't know if 24.5 points is a lot to cover, but they have the offense to do it. I wouldn't be surprised if they cover.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest either. The interesting takeaway for me here is that the weather doesn't look great. Might be raining this weekend. And Cal put up 49 last week against a terrible defense. So I don't think they're going to have nearly as easy a time scoring this weekend taking on Oregon. The over-under's at 59. I'm just a tad bit concerned because I feel like Oregon can absolutely steamroll Cal. And I'd be interested to see definitely won't put anything in my parlay here. It's too big of a spread for me to want to make a call on. But definitely just thought this game was worth mentioning. As Oregon looks to bolster their resume down the stretch, eyeing a potential Pac-12 championship game against Washington. I think the money line for Oregon here is all but a lock. And
yeah,
we'll just say lean on the under.
Yeah, I could see Oregon putting up 42, and California only putting up 7, just a couple points. I don't see California putting up too many points. So if it's gonna go over, Oregon is gonna have to put up the majority of the points. So yeah, I like the under.
Another game I want to mention here is late night Pac-12 action. UCLA traveling to Arizona to take on the Wildcats. This is a very, very low over-under here at 51. I'm very confident to say that this one will go over. UCLA, their offense has looked very decent. They're able to, put up. They were able to put up 28 last week, 42 the week prior. Tough matchup against the Beavs. Oregon State still put up 24. Notably held to 7 points by Utah on the road, but that Utah defense is very solid. On the flip side, Arizona's looked very hot offensively the last couple of weeks. They actually beat Oregon State 27-24. The week prior put up 44 against Washington State, and then put up 41 on USC. So I think this one has all the makings of a Pac-12 shootout late night primetime game. I like the over of 51.
Yeah, I'll take the other side. I think UCLA's defense is really good. We saw Arizona take down Oregon State last week. UCLA can definitely score some points, but I think their defense is the difference in this game. I don't know. It's tough to call for this one. 2.5 point spread. Arizona had a big game last week. UCLA has a good defense. Yeah, I won't make any calls on this game. Too good of a matchup for me. I could see it going either way.
Yeah, definitely with a line like 3, could see it going either way. I would have to lean on UCLA getting the job done and covering. If not, that being a push, winning by a field goal. But I love the 51 over. I think that one is, dare I say, a lock. I will go with the baby lock. That has been my sweet spot, calling the baby locks. The return of the baby lock here for over 51, UCLA, Arizona.
Yeah, all right. So I think, is there any other game that you want to cover? I think we covered most of them.
I mean, we got Purdue, Michigan, a massive spread, 32.5 for the Wolverines, and an over-under of 50.5. I've said this a couple weeks ago. Michigan can put up that many in their own right if Purdue's giving them anything. Points-wise, that one's a safe hit. I don't know if Michigan will be up for covering 32.5 points. And after calling Penn State last week, I don't want to make a call, even though I'm more confident in Michigan to get that type of a job done. Purdue's been playing. I mean, they kept a close game against Iowa. They only lost by 17 against Nebraska, so that is. I mean, those are some of their closer games, but the notable comp there is taking on Ohio State at home. They lost 41-7. Does Michigan try to best their rival there and put up a better performance? I think that's definitely the case. I won't make an official call or a bet on the 32.5, although I think Michigan's likely to do that. Just a safer play to not. That's a lot of points. But I do love the over 50.5. I think Michigan could get there, and if they have any help from Purdue, that'll hit.
Yeah, I like the over here. I can easily see Michigan putting up at least 45, 49 points. So just need either a field goal or a touchdown from Purdue to hit that over.
Also, they're coming off of a bye. They're going to be rested down the stretch. This is where they make their case to take that top spot in the college football playoff. Ultimately, it's going to come down to their matchup against Ohio State at the end of the season. But They're making statements week in and week out. And for me, I think that's all the games I think I wanted to cover. If there's anything else, Alex, that you wanted to take a look at, more than happy to discuss quickly.
Yeah, I think we covered everything, or all the games that I'm going to watch this weekend. So we'll move on to building our parlays. I'm going to go here. Give me Duke. I like Duke to bounce back here. They're at home. I'm going to put Duke on the money line. It's going to be the first position on my parlay. I'm going to go Ole Miss money line at home over Texas A&M. I'm going to go, let's see, Oregon. That's guaranteed luck. Oregon's not losing the cow. Give me Oregon on the money line and my parlay. Give me Kentucky. They've lost 3 games in a row. I think this is a good bounce back spot for them. I'll keep an eye on it and see if Will Rogers is going to play. If Will Rogers plays, I'm not picking Kentucky. I'll keep that one away. But if he doesn't play, I think Kentucky can win this one pretty easily. They definitely want to get back on the winning side of things here. So I'll take Kentucky on the money line. I'll take Alabama on the money line as well. And that's going to be my parlay. And put $10 on this for a payout of 47 and a profit of $37. That's going to be my parlay for this week.
Love to hear it, Alex. I think we got a big week for us. I love that bet for you in that position overall, combining all those odds. I'm gonna switch things up a tad. I'm still gonna go with a 4 spread slate like I've been doing, but I'm gonna toss in a little 2-teamer, calling this one slow and steady. These are my 2 favorite plays of this week, and if history serves me right, over the last 3 weeks, I've definitely had 2 hits from my 4 calls each week. So I'm going to put in a safe 2-leg parlay, build up that account if anybody wants to tail, and then I'll give 4 games after. The 2-legger is going to be Notre Dame -3 taking on Clemson. Notre Dame, I mean, they have to cover this, especially coming off last week, especially with the the rivalry that they've been building between Clemson the last couple years. This game means more. They definitely want to prove that the Ohio State loss was a fluke, especially that Louisville loss. I know they're on the road, but this one I feel like they win by more than a touchdown. So give me the Notre Dame Fighting Irish -3. And I'm going to be pairing that with Utah and Arizona State under. I think that one has a lot to like for an under. Terrible offenses. Utah's defense is top tier, has kept them in a lot of games this season. Utah at home, 41.5. I think this one's more along the lines of a Utah 21, Arizona State 7. So I like that under at 41.5, and that'll be my slow and steady 2-leg parlay. As for the 4-leg slate, give me the same 2 legs I just mentioned. Then give me Alabama -3 on taking on LSU. Big game, big call. Gotta have it in the parlay for this week. Gotta trust Nick Saban over Brian Kelly. And then the last leg that I'll be adding here. This is one thing that I have in my notes here, but didn't mention on Florida State and Pitt. Is that Pitt called a team meeting last week, and they're at home taking on a big opponent here. Called a team meeting in the locker room after a tough loss last week. I think they're going to be playing a lot harder here. I don't think it's safe to say they can cover 21.5, but I think they're going to be putting up more points. And Florida State has been serving me right on the overs. I have to keep rolling with the Seminoles. I do think Pitt's going to be scoring to keep this one close, but at the end of the day, Florida State, Jordan Travis, their offense too good. Final leg for the 4-for-4. Give me Florida State, Pitt over 51 to round that out. So a slow and steady play and another 4-for-4 for me.
Yeah, those are some really good bets. I'm gonna have to tell you on some of those, but I'm feeling pretty comfortable on our parlays for this week. Hopefully we get back on track. We have a good weekend of football. Comment down in the comments who you guys have for this week, whether it's LSU or Alabama, Clemson or Notre Dame, Texas or Kansas State, Georgia or Missouri. Tell us which games you think are on your list for upset alerts. And yeah, tune in next week. We'll see what happens in these games. And we'll be back next week for more.
Absolutely, guys. Please let us know any thoughts you might have. We're looking forward the next coming weeks to hopefully get an intriguing guest on the pod. And without a doubt, if any of you listening have some takes, want to counter Alex or myself on our calls, you think we don't know what we're talking about, we'd love to have you on and get some discussions going. This is all about building up the community. We'd love to see some of your picks down in the comments, or if you're tailing along, taking positions on overtime, see where you might finish up in that parlay leaderboard, always with those awesome incentives if you finish within the top 10. But absolutely, it's been another pleasure, Alex, discussing college football with you this Wednesday. We've had so many great games the past weekend and the week before, and I think this weekend, without a doubt, has the potential to be the biggest one of the season. And we'll be back next Wednesday to cover all things on the field with you guys here for Overtime Markets. Thank you once again, Alex. This has been fun.
Yeah, thank you, Steven. I'll see you again next week. Looking forward to this weekend.
Enjoy that LSU-Alabama game.
So thanks to our two hosts, just a quick reminder that none of this was financial advice or sports advice. The choice is yours. Place your position on Overtime Markets.xyz. See you next week.